My name is John Smith. 35 years ago, to treat my depression, I invested in inventing an emotion battery. Just by holding the battery, people can draw from it a constant flow of good emotions and positive energy. The emotion battery proved a massive success. Upon its launch, it sold out instantly. Soon, it became a global sensation. But the battery itself is merely a vessel. As the name implies, it only stores emotions. It doesn't generate them. So, for our product to work, someone must infuse it with their good emotions. Unknowingly, emotion batteries have created an industry that entrenches class divides. Be rich to fill their void. Splurge vast sums on emotion batteries in the market. Every day, brimming with emotions. They achieve breakthrough after breakthrough, be reaping unimaginable profits. Meanwhile, the poor, just to feed themselves, have no choice but to sell their good emotions, to charge the batteries. Every day, they're overwhelmed with negative energy, unable to focus on their work, trapped in an endless struggle at the bottom. In the end, they become emotion slaves, surviving by selling their feelings. Yet, the greatest winner is me. Thanks to the success of emotion batteries, I not only overcame the depression that haunted me for years, but also amassed enormous wealth. Nowadays, I'm brimming with emotions every day, bursting with positive energy. Or so it seems. This is the facade I present to the world, to uphold my image. The real me lost the ability to feel joy long ago, because extremes lead to reversals. Year after year, day after day of using emotion batteries, I've grown utterly numb. Happiness now feels as bland as tap water, leaving me bored and empty. The depression and mania that vanished years ago seem to be creeping back as I drift further from joy. I desperately need to find emotions that can rekindle my happiness. So I summoned my assistant, Jane. Sharp as a tack, Pan, utterly dependable. So I entrusted her with this daunting task. Track down the most thrilling, most joyful emotion in the world. Jane took my orders, and as always, without a moment's hesitation, sprang into action. In the University Library in London, a weary, middle-aged man stared intently at the results screen before him. This was his 12th attempt to conquer the pinnacle of learning he'd always dreamed of. Over the years, he'd scraped by with part-time jobs, penned the occasional sale of his emotions, to save up for tuition fees. He'd battled countless obstacles, yet never abandoned his dream. Memories of the past flooded his mind. He carefully typed in his admission number. A bold line of text flashed up before him. "You have been admitted to our university. Congratulations." The man let out a jubilant shout. An indescribable wave of joy surged through him. Suddenly, a battery appeared in front of him. He looked up, bewildered. It was Jane. £10 million for your emotion. Jane cut straight to the chase. No faffing about. The man snapped out of his shock. He opened his mouth to speak. £20 million. You've got 3 seconds to decide. Jane didn't give him room for chatter. The man reached out and grasped the battery. His eyes slowly turned vacant and dull. In the end, he couldn't resist the lure of cash. What's this rubbish? Is this your idea of an answer? Jane, you've let me down badly. I roared in frustration, hurling this priceless emotion battery, smashing it to bits. Jane offered no excuses and promptly set off to find her next target. In the maternity ward of a London hospital, a middle-aged woman howled in agony. Great beads of sweat poured from her forehead like rain. Push harder, the baby's head is out. Soon, a sharp, clear infant cry echoed through the ward. Congratulations, your baby's 6 pounds, 3 ounces, and perfectly healthy. I honestly didn't think you'd deliver so smoothly at 45. It's nothing short of a miracle. Truly a miracle. The doctor laid the newborn beside the knackered mother. Even so, after suffering multiple miscarriages and believing she'd never bear a child again, the woman gazed at her healthy, lively baby. Her exhaustion swept away by overwhelming joy. Right then, an emotion battery landed beside her. Moments later, Jane walked off with it. Behind her, a nurse shouted, "Help, the mother's passed out. We need urgent help." Rubbish. Utter rubbish, all of it. You lot are useless. By now, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. Depression and mania were taking over. Jane stayed silent, slipping quietly out of my room. A pale-faced girl lay in a coma. Her family hovered around, faces etched with worry. The girl had brain cancer. The doctor gave her a 15% chance of surviving surgery. But the brave girl chose to go under the knife. After a 12-hour operation, all that remained was waiting for her to wake up. A sign the surgery had worked. After 4 tense hours, she slowly opened her eyes. Her family burst into tears of relief. Seeing their joy, the girl teared up too. She felt reborn, flooded with elation. At that moment, Jane appeared. This time, she brought several batteries. She brought up all the joy in the room, planning to fuse it all together into the ultimate worldly bliss. It seemed to work. Or perhaps it didn't. By now, I was a hollow shell, tormented by emotions, like a glass of iced water with a hint of sugar. That faint happiness barely registered in me. I muttered feebly, "Is this it, your final answer? Is there really no other way to make me happy?" I looked at Jane, pleading, hoping for a flicker of something. On her blank face, "I've got an idea." To my surprise, Jane actually spoke. "You know as well as I do, you can't feel happiness anymore, because your capacity for it was worn away by years of using emotion batteries. Worn away completely. To switch it back on, we need extreme pain. To flip your emotional switch, create a stark contrast. Only then can you feel happiness again. Will that actually work? I wavered. It's the only option. Jane replied, pulling out a red battery. I knew that battery. It's our company's negative energy battery, the opposite of an emotion battery. It stores only bad emotions and negative energy. It's a byproduct from developing the emotion batteries. A leftover. Jane handed it to me. I stared at the negative energy battery. Hesitating, I looked into Jane's eyes. They were as empty as ever, but now held a glint of resolve and reassurance. Steeling myself, I seized the battery and gripped it tight. In an instant, a torrent of bad emotions crashed into me. My body, unused to this intensity, pain of negativity for so long, had lost all resistance to it. My emotions shattered. I didn't last long before blacking out. No idea how much time passed. I came to on the sofa. Dried tear tracks streaked my face. Though awake, I could still feel those negative emotions lingering, clinging to my chest. I looked at Jane beside me. What is this feeling? I've never known pain like this. Where did you find such deep human suffering? I asked, intrigued. It's just the daily grind of 10,000 suffering souls. Nothing special. You might not realize. But this is their everyday life, Jane explained, her face as blank as ever. So is my happiness switch flipped now. That's only step one. You've been stuck in one emotion too long. Desperate ills need drastic cures. That was just the spark. Now comes the real medicine. You'll need 10 more negative energy batteries to fully restore your emotional range. As she spoke, Jane produced a pack of negative energy batteries. I gaped at her in horror. Are you sure this is meant to fix me? Jane stared back, expressionless. I studied this face I'd seen every day, so familiar to me, and a sudden chill gripped me. Was it yearning for joy or dread of Jane? Almost without thinking, I took the batteries. If the earlier pain was unbearable, this was like being flayed alive over and over. My emotions were torn apart and rebuilt endlessly. My mind and body descended into chaos. No clue how long it lasted. I opened my eyes. I was utterly drained. Jane still stood there, but her face, it bore a strange smile I'd never seen. A smile that chilled me to the bone. She pulled an empty emotion battery from her pocket, then held it in her hand. Soon, it glowed green, fully charged. Here's the most thrilling, joyful emotion you wanted, Jane said, passing me the battery. I clutched it tightly. Instantly, my emotions erupted like a burst dam. A flood of indescribable bliss overwhelmed my brain. Familiar yet alien, it felt like a rebirth. I was a madman, awash with endless dopamine. Is this the happiness I've craved? So happy, far too happy. Time blurred. In the silent room, Jane gazed at John Smith on the sofa, dead from a neuronal overload caused by too much emotion. Before you felt the agony of a broken family. That pain's been buried deep inside me. But now, you've tasted the thrill of revenge. I came from an ordinary family. Emotion batteries changed everything. filling my life with negative energy from the start. My father scraped by selling his emotions to keep us afloat. When I was 10, he couldn't take the torment anymore. Ben took his own life. My mother picked up where he left off, only to follow him 4 years later. After that, I was alone in the world. An orphanage in London took me in, but the director was an absolute monster. He forced us to sell our good emotions, to line his pockets. From then on, bury my feelings. My life boiled down to one mission: to hold you, the creator of emotion batteries, and make you pay for my family.